Hello, everybody, and welcome to the last week of Google Code in 2015. Well, 2014. It started in one of those years and ended the other one. So today we have two students who are going to be doing presentations, and we're going to start off with Daryl presenting a bug from Sprout.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay, I start sharing my screen. So this bug it happens on Sprout on a Raspberry Pi. It's related to WAF and builds in general. So let me scroll back up. I run it already because it's kind of slow. So I run this command here. Use flag rpi and emerge libsoy build. It starts alright. It clones the repo. But then it gets to the WAF configure stage, and it fails with when being unable to find a C compiler. All right, so scroll down here. The configure command that's run by the WAF utils E class, and this is where it fails. All right. The thing is, this exact same command, just on a different architecture. So let's say a normal 32-bit computer or 64-bit, it works this WAF configure with these flags. Of course, architecture dependent. It will work. However, okay, let me share the other screen. Okay, so this is what happens when I run just WAF configure in the folder of the code. Just manually run it. It looks for GCC and finds it. It's alright. It works. If I run the same command that is used by the ebuild, this also works. This command, it finds GCC, and then I have this. That's the result from running the ebuild on a normal computer, not a Raspberry Pi. It also works. It finds GCC. Just this time it looks for a different name of GCC. It looks for architecture, system, and yeah, the GCC. And this is what we get when we run it on the Raspberry Pi from the ebuild. It uses this same command that I used earlier for the other code, and it looks for GCC. It looks again like the on the PC. It looks for architecture, then hard float, Linux, etc. And the error is could not determine compiler type. It finds it, but cannot recognize it as GCC compiler. When I run the a which command, which looking for okay, I think you see the screen. Yeah. All right. So which armv6 blah blah. It finds it, so it exists, the GCC compiler, but it wouldn't work if run from the ebuild. So I think it might be related somehow to the C flags or the CC flags that the WAF utils E class provides, or maybe it is somehow related to the architecture and it can't really resolve GCC compiler correctly. So that's the bug.
Is it only libsoy that's causing this problem?
No, it's just any ebuild that uses like this GCC with WAF, from what I've seen. So it seems to be a problem, maybe in Sprout, maybe in the configuration of Portage on Sprout. I'm not sure really.
Entirely possible. The image is still very beta quality. I wasn't noticing that with other ebuilds though, so I'm curious what was being done differently.
Yeah, That's weird. Well, I'm not sure if any of the other e-builds actually used WAF utils class.
Mm.
It seems to be coming from that.
Yeah. Maybe it's a path issue as well. It looked like it was looking at the eBuild helpers path rather than the global GCC.
Yeah.
Something screwy is going on that you need to figure out, obviously. That's not. There's nothing really that weird in the new libsoy eBuild. It's just using the porters util, so we should figure out what that is and fix it before it goes.
Yes. Exactly.
So when you ran it on a PC, you were running it on a Linux PC, right?
Yes, I was running this on the copyleft virtual machine, the one we got for testing eBuilds in general. So yeah, I run that on that.
I'm wondering if not compiling on the Raspberry Pi could have been because of the Raspberry Pi Linux distribution, or if it's all Linux distributions on the Raspberry Pi.
I don't think that would be the reason, but it's possible.
Well, it's an eBuild is only going to be Gen 2 based. It would probably cause the same problem on any Gen 2 based Raspberry Pi. The Sprout build is based on the Gen 2 instructions for building for Raspberry Pi, but has been improved in a lot of ways that were broken in the way that Gen 2 really haphazard, or not Gen 2. The person with Gen 2 who ported to Raspberry Pi, the one or two people involved, did a really sloppy job on it. Not to criticize them. I mean, we all have a lot on our plate, and sometimes we leave sloppy work behind. But we put a lot of work into getting the Sprout into Raspberry Pi pretty solid. That was been like a year and a half now working on that. So yeah, clearly something we need to fix. We probably need a ticket system to move forward on it and start tracking like all the nitty gritties to polish up the image before we go out. I mean, we already know the B plus doesn't work on the current image either, so that's a kernel issue. Has anyone recompiled the kernel to get it to work on the B plus?
I actually didn't have to recompile. I used the Arch Linux kernel. It works.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to look for an old version actually, like November or from last year. It had support for the USBs and the Ethernet port, so that was enough. And I also had to copy some of the configuration parts of the config.txt, and it worked. I also copied the other parts of the firmware, the boot code, and stuff like that. But it worked like that, yeah.
Did the kernel you copied over have BTRFS support?
Yes, it did. That's why I used it, not the default one.
Cool. Yeah, I'd be interested. There was some discussion a few months ago that I didn't really look into pretty heavily of potentially when Sprout starts to support locally run software, of abstracting it using the C groups namespaces in the kernel. Some system, probably not, but similar to Docker. And if we went that way, we'd probably have to not use the default Raspberry Pi kernel anymore, because I really doubt it would support that.
Yeah.
And the architecture will. It's just a kernel level thing. It's not KVM, but yeah. Sandboxing games, that can be important someday.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments to add to that? Okay, let's move on. Michael, you said you were going to present a feature?
It's feature in KDE, sorry. I will show my screen. Second. Okay. So, last 2 weeks I was working on XMPP integration in KDE Soy, and I want to show it. So it's just like we have I add this XMPP integration, so we can use it to other tasks, to other things to do with XMPP. But I just create a interface that could be used to do those other things. So the main, I would say, the main feature in it is preferences settings. I mean, it's just a window where we set the settings, and that's just to set. But the main feature is, of course, XMPP support, and it just added. So to test it, I create a test XMPP account, and I want to show it that it works. You see this, so it works. And I don't think so. It's all here. I think it's all that I have to show you. So you can ask questions.
So that's I looked over because I had the mentor that reviewed it. This is using some KDE's password management that's shared with.
Yes, it uses key wallet that is securing our passwords.
Mhm.
So it is made in secure manner.
Is the password shared from other XPP clients, or is it unique to KDE Soy? At the way it's stored in the wallet.
To access the KDE Soy, you have to have the key wallet and the whole KDE environment, KDE desktop. So, and it's used only for KDE Soy, only for the main application. So if you copy this application to, for example, for other user, it will attempt to log in again or create a new account for Key Vault.
So it's storing the passwords locally?
Yes.
But encrypted.
Yes, of course.
Do you see anything like a next step in this XMPP?
Recently, I think there's some features like SKG catalogs. This isn't done yet, but I think it will be made. It will be made in future. I saw there was a task for creating a draft extension for XMPP. So this will be used to handle users catalog games catalogs, etc.
Yeah, there's potentially a Google Summer Code project for working on KDE Soy, as an idea at least. We are just now starting the the GSOC ideas page. So you have to get an application in pretty quick as an organization. And that was one of them that is carrying over from last year, is to really make KD's way shine. There's a lot of stuff beyond just the basics to make this really work well. So,
Yeah.
and if it's done, then next GCI, there could be a lot more refinement tasks rather than this low level, just getting the basic application working tasks for KD's.
Yeah.
So,
For example, we have to implement rendering because it is not done yet. But I think maybe after Google Coding, I will implement because I just want to do it because I found how to fix it.
what age level are you a senior right now?
Sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear.
Are you a senior in high school right now?
Yes.
So you're going off to college in the fall?
No. I'm still in high school because I'm 16. Yeah.
Ah.
I'm 16. So I can't participate in GSOC.
Yeah, that would be $5,500 to work on it over the summer. Was a good amount of money.
Yeah.
And GCI students, well, any previous students have definitely an advantage when applying for GSOC. So just something to keep in mind as for the GCI students that are graduating.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So what's this week been like for GCI?
This was last week.
Quiet.
Yeah. I did like one task, and that was all I did this week.
Me too.
I think I did like one task, and that's this one.
Yeah, this has been a weird GCI. Like, we had unprecedented traffic really early in the program, and then it continued to decline over the course of the program. A lot of it was the tasks that were left open because so many got eaten up early on. The tasks that were left open were the harder ones, so it wasn't as easy to breeze through a task a day. Also, the mentor pool getting smaller and smaller week after week has not been good for us either. We need to fix that next year. Remember, we're all volunteers, and we have to make sure we have enough volunteers to handle the entire program. Hitting 90 tasks completed in the first week burned out more than half the mentor pool in the first week. So, yeah. Got through it though. And we have more complete tasks this year than we did last. We've had more students this year than we had last. This has definitely been a much larger program than I think anyone really expected. And if we can make it through and still do GSOC and GCI next year, we'll be in good shape. The biggest problem organizations in GCI have is complete mentor burnout. We actually had an organization last year that didn't come back this year because it destroyed their project. In their words, I'm not going to name which project it is, but they said very frankly, it took so much resources from us for 8 weeks to run the program, and before the program even started to get the tasks written and everyone organized. By the time it was done, everyone had to focus on other things again, and they didn't have the energy. It had like one person willing to do a GCI. No one wanted to touch it again. They were smaller than us, so it may be that they weren't prepared for the traffic increase last year, which was also a pretty big gain. But, I mean, that's really the litmus test for the organizations, is whether or not we can do it again. We'll see next fall if we can get the energy back up.
seems like GCI is starting to get to that point where it's been around long enough that you're going to have people who've been through the program start to join as mentors, and maybe that'll help boost companies.
Yeah, it worked with Matt Habel came on as a mentor. He was a grand prize winner last year. The problem with former GCI students as mentors is they're also freshmen in college, usually. So they have huge class time going on and the midterms and everything else going on at the same time as GCI. In GSOC, we very commonly have former GSOC students come back as mentors. I would really like to see more GCI students come back as mentors. But we haven't seen that so much so far. We've had it, but they're not really heavily involved like you'd expect. Daryl, you can change that.
Sorry, forgot I'm muted.
Oh, you can help change it, Daryl.
Oh yeah, sure thing.
Come back as a mentor.
I would love to.
You have task ideas already in mind?
Yeah, a bit, I guess. And usually after Google Summer of Code, there's a lot of stuff to polish, so
Oh yeah.
that's another source.
Yeah, I'm hoping this is a more productive GSOC. I think last year was a little less focused than I wanted. GCI left us in a weird state last year, and the students came on with post-burnout mentors not developing between GCI and GSOC. It's a lot better when GCI or GSOC comes in with a more polished state, preferably right after release, and then they can work on something a little more together. But a lot of the GSOC students seem to be cleaning up from the party, so to speak. I know a couple of them were writing in their feedback like, we did not expect the code to be in this shape. So that's on us. It's entirely on us. We need to do the inner program cleanup steps to get things, if not clean, at least more focused. You end up with a lot of little pieces in place without the underlying. Example is Player D. And Light Melody, for that matter. Both of them we expected to be much better shape than they were going to GCI. And it made working on them, I mean, tasks were done successfully, but working on them as in their incomplete, uncompilable states was not the easiest. So, if we're going to pull off GSOC this year, we need to do some cleanup work between now and April.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
So there's other programming coming up as well, non-Google programming. There's PyWeek. PyWeek runs generally twice a year. We've done competition teams with that before. We came in second place once, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah. You guys already know what kind of cleanup work is left over. Light Melody isn't actually connecting to XMPP right now. That's a weird improvement. HGBot is still down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We lost that halfway through the program. That wasn't good.
Is it a database corruption or something?
I have no idea. No, I reverted the bot back to a state that it should have worked. I think it's really. I think the files on the server may be in a bad shape. They revert both the hook and the bot back to the version they were when the program started, and it's still not working. I don't know why it's not working. It seems to be connecting to Freenode, partially, and then bounces out. I almost think it wasn't a problem in the code in the first place. I think it may have been something changed on Freenode's side. I get a who was showing that the bot connected, and Nixserv says the bot connected, but at no point does the bot connect. And when I added a command on connect to send me a message when it's fully connected, it never sends the command. So there's something really fundamental with the IRC connection phase that's not working right now.
By the way, I have tested it, the AGBot, but you said it doesn't work, but for me it works. That's kinda weird, I think, because I ran it, post change grabs, and it works. I don't know why, but it works.
Yeah. It may be something specific to the server going on. It's like Gremlins got into it. I spent like 8 hours trying to fix the problem and just kept hitting my head against the wall. We also have the new continuous integration server that needs to get fully set up. If you guys want access, we got a nice 12-core server just sitting there online with SSH access. So
I was actually just about to mention continuous integration. I do robotics in my team. We just set up a Travis CI integration thing to make sure that all the code compiles correctly when you push it to GitHub.
yeah, we spent $1,600 on the server. We have a really nice beefy server just sitting there powered on. Yeah, it just needs to get fleshed out, get the code set up. I've been focusing on HTTP first. I was expecting to get the continuous integration working, but HTTP takes priority. So, yeah. Anyone interested in getting into that? SSH access and logging in and getting the box set up properly?
Yeah, that sounds fun. I could take a look at that.
Yeah. Guess what's running? Daryl, is your favorite distro of Gentoo?
Oh man. Well, I've grown to kind of get in terms with it, but it was a big surprise when I first started. So confusing.
Yeah, this is actually a potential good use case for Docker. I mean, we're obviously for Windows building, we're going to have to use QEMU here. But it'd be good to get Docker set up, and there's really simple Gentoo directions for doing that. And then we can, instead of launching a full virtual machine running Ubuntu and Red Hat and so on, and running them continuously, we can just have Docker containers running versions of Ubuntu and Red Hat, because the continuous integration doesn't really do anything with the Ubuntu or Red Hat changes to the kernel. That's the only thing you don't get with Docker. Docker's just alternative user space. It's not an alternative kernel. So you don't get the special Ubuntu kernel. You just get Ubuntu.
Mm-hmm.
But we shouldn't move that. Also, very potentially, Docker could be set up with proper DRM. So you can do rendering of it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Run tests. All that fun stuff. So two of you are seniors then.
Two of us what?
Tobias,
No, I'm a junior.
you're a junior.
Yes.
Okay. So we can see you potentially next year.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I think I'm the only ODIG here.
Yeah, this is your third year, would you say, isn't it?
Yeah, third one. It's been a good time.
So I have a last question. what would you love to see done in the code? And I'm just talking very broadly in the code. What would you love to see done in the next 3 months?
I would like to see controllers working again. That would be nice. And it's a pretty crucial part of any game development anyway, so I would love to see that. Maybe music and audio in general, that would be a nice thing too. But as far as I know, we haven't even brainstormed that yet, so.
We've had audio working before, and it was always a bit of a work on the API. I don't think we've really figured out how to do audio correctly. So.
I've seen some places where the documentation is a little bit lackluster.
Oh, you should have seen it like 2 years ago. Last year there was a lot of documentation done, I remember.
Mhm.
Especially the last days of GCI last year. We did quite a bit.
Yeah, I did we're running the tasks up in the mad 4 week before GCI started rush to get 300 tasks written before the program started, which we didn't hit, if I remember correctly. I think we got to 200. Doing a search for what documentation wasn't provided at all, and then which documentation was too short. We didn't find a lot left over from previous GCIs. So, if you know where documentation is needed, if we don't get to it next year, it'd be good to have a list, because that will be easy to generate tasks for next year. It's been thrown around. I don't want to commit doing it. It's been thrown around doing a high school summer program as well. We have some funding for such a program. Not a lot, but some. And certainly enough for t-shirts and certificates, if not something really nice on top of it. So we might be able to get that together this year. I've tried 2 years before and didn't actually get together. GSOC uses a lot of our resources. So.
Yeah.
And summer's always hard for mentors.
Yeah.
Everyone says summer is perfect for high schoolers who should do a summer program, but the reality is that mentors have vacations during summer. It's hard enough to keep mentors working with the college students. And the college students are much more independent. They have one long project to work on over the summer. They don't need constant review and feedback. GCI is a lot more time intensive. Not that holidays are a better time for us, but for some reason winter seems to work better for GCI. But it would be good, especially for the southern hemisphere students, to be able to do a winter break program like GCI.
Another thing that probably would be good to fix, that would be the scenes. Planner and landscape, I think, are still not working, so that would be a good thing to fix.
How about lower, a more broad, we need a list of what's not working before we can release. Joe, would you be willing to put that together?
Well, as much as I found, sure. But there's probably stuff that I haven't found and that exists, so.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we need like a web form or something on the server that, or like a ticket system, but just a bit more closed. I mean, just GCI students can send tickets there, to avoid spam and useless stuff like that.
Well, I just did spend 4 hours today wiping out several thousand, and I believe it's up towards 19,000 spam tickets on the server.
Yeah.
that required a Python script to export the track admin command on the shell to get it done. I tried to do it as a shell script, and it was just rerunning the track admin command each time was taking 5 seconds per command. So I had to write a special little Python script to do the internal stuff. There's just so much of it. I have turned tickets, and I believe it's now active on PySoy now it's supposed to be, so that only developers can submit a ticket, at least for now. Mostly because we have spammers hitting it like several hits a second right now. It's kind of insane. We're going to have to figure something out to guard against spam bots. But beside that, there is a good ticket system. I'm not a huge fan of Track, but it is there. It does work, and it does have the Beta 3 milestone. And it has a nice little bar graph showing how close we are as tickets get close. So it might be useful to start throwing tickets up, even if they're just like one line, this needs to get fixed.
Yeah.
You know, just a title for now. It would be good to get Beta 3 out. I know we see that every year. Daryl, this is your 3rd year with us, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many years have we said we'd like to get Beta 3 out?
Oh, all of them.
So.
Yeah. But there was a lot of rewriting done, so I guess that slowed the release. We moved from GLES 1 to GLES 2, and more stuff along that. Controllers, networking, more.
Like 4 years ago, I want to say maybe 5, we were actually within 2 weeks of releasing. And what we found just before the release, that there was a race condition that causes the entire engine to crash that would trigger anywhere between a few minutes and a few hours after running it. And they're like, oh, we gotta hold back the release to fix this race condition, because it is actually kind of severe race condition. And that is why we had to rewrite the engine. The race condition was caused by Python not behaving well. It was moving objects around when it really didn't need to, and caused pointers to get it's not some weird memory management within in Python garbage collector was going awry, and we could never predict when it was going to happen. So we couldn't control it, we couldn't stop it. We would have to have gone and fixed Python. So we ended up rewriting the G-object at that point.
Yeah.
So that's where libsoy came from, and we've been on the Beta 3 delay phase since. It's like a car that's been turning its wheels for so long that it's just kind of dug holes for the back tires. You get the metaphor.
Yeah.
We need to push the car out of the rut so we can start releasing on a regular basis again. And once we get Beta 3 out, we'll be able to get other releases out fairly soon, and probably even a stable 1.0. So. Anyone else? Comments, feedback, how did the program go for you? What did you wish had happened?
I felt like, I know this is probably not something that can be easily fixed in the program, but there's so many tasks, but not really a lot for each individual project. So you sort of always have to be learning a new project and how it works in sort of the intricacies.
Yeah, that was our task design strategy this year, was wide, not deep. But it didn't work as well because we needed to have some of the projects deeper than they were. The problem last year is that we ended up with 4 students who completed more than 5 tasks, which is really bad. and the feedback from the students who only completed 4 or fewer tasks
It was
was
just too
basically
hard.
3 or fewer was the tasks that they could have done were already done, and like Daryl, Samuel, Matt were blazing ahead with all the more complicated stuff based on the knowledge they had from previous, and could tackle those harder tasks because they've already done the easier stuff, and we didn't have any of the beginner stuff left. Beginner tasks helped a lot, but I would have preferred if we had a system to gradient better than just beginner and non-beginner. It would have been nice if we had more time to develop the broad and deep. So you could pick any number of different projects to work on and work on deeper stuff as you got further in. But limited mentor time.
There is that, yeah.
Yeah, it's something I mentioned to Stephanie. Needing a more gradient system. I love the beginner tasks. So we had a whole lot of them completed too. We had it looks like 80 students completed tasks this year.
Also, something on the GCI page for, I guess, for each of the companies where you can look at the tasks. On the homepage of GCI, it allows you to filter by beginner and non-beginner tasks. There's a column for that, but on the actual company or on the actual page for the company, there's nothing that allows you to sort like that, so it gets a little bit cluttered.
Have you looked recently? Because I thought we split the beginner tasks off.
Maybe. I just wrote a regular expression to get rid of everything that said intro in it. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I submitted that as a bug report early in the program because I wanted to see what the other organizations were running for beginner tasks, and discovered that you couldn't actually look for them. So I thought that was completed. The Melange team, the team that works on GCI itself, is doing a all hands in February. If you guys are interested, it's all Python, and it's available, and you can download it and submit patches. So that's a massive credit from Google to contribute to the project. If you're so inclined. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit with Melange that could be moved on with the UI. The other big one, the mentors across the board were complaining about this, is because we had a much higher pace, a lot of mentors were reviewing by cell phone, including myself, and the buttons at the top of the task were so thin, we were fingering the wrong button, sometimes unassigning the task instead of closing it. It only happened a few times with us, and it was pretty easy to rectify, but I've taken on I submitted the ticket and claimed it for myself to make the buttons taller so that we can fat finger less. Apparently, people are even doing that on desktop with a mouse. So.
Or at least like some sort of confirmation dialogue.
Yeah, it was discussed, so we decided not to do that because it adds an extra button click. And when we're doing a lot of intro tasks, it was just adding an extra click. I was suggesting an undo feature for next year so that we have, like on Gmail undo, you have 60 seconds to undo an action. If you hit the wrong button, you can undo the button and before it goes into the database. That's going to take a different process within Launch, though, because that means when you make a change to a task, it has to go into a pending box with a timestamp, and then it has to have a process that pulls based on timestamp out. But that would also be for students, because a lot of students misclick on things like unassigning a task rather than submitting it for review. We just had a student do that the very last few minutes of the program, and then they couldn't reclaim it. It got fixed, but students have been misclicking the buttons as well. What on the Melange, completely outside of our program, what on Melange would you fix? Is there anything else that would make it easier to refine tasks? Besides the list taking forever to load, we know about that.
Is the selection for when you assign a type to a task, is that just a drop down? Do you just add a category to that?
For us, we have to type it in. Ours come from the XML documents, which if you haven't seen HEGOT announce that yet, it's actually starter material. It's public readable. So we edit the XML. The XML updates our gci.copyleft.org site. And then there's a separate template I can run by command line to export the CSV that Melange will import and turn that into tasks. But we actually have to type out the types with comma separated and etc. But there's only the 5 that are allowed. So if you type in a type that's not allowed, it gets rejected. Yeah. So, great example of Melange updates. Previous years, tasks were getting bounced back because they weren't cased right on the type. So if you put documentation all lowercase, it would bounce back as documentation is not an accepted type.
Oh, wow.
And so I wrote a small snippet to run the dot title function on the string to normalize the case before sending it into the check. It's like a 1-line, 2-line fix. But that was one of the things I did from launch this last year. A lot of little things. Anything you find that is annoying or could be improved on, we can throw in as a launch ticket, or even take it on yourself and submit as a patch. So. One thing I would like to see, the drop-down list, I understand why they're used, and it's really nice having the drop-down list that you can filter on. I think that'd be better if we had a way of structuring them closer to what we do on our site.
Yeah.
Like, break them into our own categories, or it's just the drop-down list and having to search is. If you've done GCI before, you're used to it, but if you're brand new to GCI, I've seen student after student just get incredibly frustrated. We had a couple students for us who took on like an intro to sugar task, and afterwards they said, "Oh, I thought I was completing this for sugar," and they're in sugar's IRC channel looking for help, even though it was our task. And they later told Sugar, like, you should copy their intro task because their intro task is really awesome. But the filter, if you don't know, like, to filter by organization, you don't realize which organization you're doing the task for. So I think we got like 1 or 2 students complete an intro to sugar who thought they were doing a sugar task.
Another good thing would be if it actually showed what task is claimed, and sometimes when tasks disappear, you wonder if they're deleted or claimed. So that would be maybe good. I remember we had student-made leaderboards back in the days, and it actually showed which tasks are claimed during this time interval from when you last checked the leaderboard. So it was showing which tasks are claimed, so you could know, what is going on, and maybe how to cooperate with other students or stuff like that. It could be useful.
So one of the things I suggested, and I don't know if we're going to do this, I am advocating for it. I love IRC. I've used IRC forever. I was part of kind of getting, I was one of the people pioneering Freenode when it just started up, or open projects I've met back then. That said, IRC is one of the problems new GCI students have. Even if they figure out the web chat link, and we start to include the web chat link directly into the tasks, even if they found the web chat link, figuring out like mentors don't reply immediately, and who are the mentors and who are not. How do you ask for help? A lot of them were bouncing on for 3 minutes and then leaving, and then assigning the task. And no mentors are helping me. The students who figure out IRC stick with the task a lot more than those that don't. And we saw a lot of students drop into IRC for a few minutes and leave in unassigned tasks. So whether the students went on to claim other tasks later would be interesting to look into, but my suggestion was integrating the GCI chat into Melange. Now it could just be an IRC interface, but it'd be nice if we can link up each student's and each mentor's IRC nick, so you can see immediately which student on the chat room is doing which task, and you can have real integration between the two systems. Right now, I mean, we're dropping URLs to tasks into IRC. It's a little ridiculous. And we have students writing silly, goofy IRC bots to try to automate some of it. So hopefully the A kick I threw on the channel for that particular annoying bot will stick. I haven't actually used Chanserve to do an administrative function on a channel for like 4 years. So, that's a feature, and it may be a feature I work on for Melange over the next year before the next GCI is getting the chat integrated with Melange itself. The other big one is that not all the organizations use IRC. Some don't use a chat system at all. Some just use the Melange system. So students that migrate between organizations may have no idea how to use the system that any particular org uses. The normalizing that across the orgs would be very good, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's just an IRC client.
And maybe also linking some of the newer students to just a basic overview of what is IRC.
Yeah, we had the bubble in the intro tasks, or some of them at least, on what IRC was. Have you seen the updated version of that?
Seen what? I didn't catch that.
The intro to Linux, or intro to Sugar, or the newer intro tasks that were not.
Oh yeah, they're really good. I like them. Very helpful. They include pretty much all the relevant information, and they give students a nice professional feeling about how stuff is going on.
Yeah, we had not to drop names. I'm not going to disparage another org, but the inspiration to that was helping the student here in DC get started, and it was actually at Wilson, Tobias' school. They claimed a task and the night before, and they couldn't figure out how to do the task, and they showed it to me, and it was 2 sentences and used a whole lot of words I didn't know. And we tried to Google search, and we're finding some very obscure web pages referring to the things in the task. There's no link in contacting the mentors. Either they're on the org's homepage. We couldn't figure out where their IRC channel was. We found an IRC channel, their name, on Freenode, but no one was there. And I mean, really, no one was there. The channel was empty. He ended up unclaiming the task because couldn't figure out. But other students were actually completing tasks with them, so God knows what's actually going on there. It may be that they're just operating in a way that people outside the project aren't familiar with, but that 2-sentence task description Yeah. It was something really basic, but I'm sure. But if I'm looking at it as a mentor and developer for 20 years, I'm looking at this and I can't figure it out. A student who's brand new to development isn't going to be able to figure this out. So, looking at their frustrations is what I would really like all of our tasks next year to have a similar style to that.
Maybe some sort of like melange, Google Code and standardized sort of outline for what a beginning GCI coder is.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a meeting every fall at Google's headquarters in the Bay Area. We have a meeting for GCI and discuss things like this before the GCI program starts. Not that everyone holds to. We discuss it. Every org runs their own little ship. Thankfully, previous years scores were not kept separate between the orgs, so there was a lot of very strange competition forming of orgs racing to the bottom of how easy their tasks would be to try to lure students into the org. Also, tasks were rated by mentors as easy, medium, or hard, and worth 1, 2, or 4 points. So a lot of the orgs were giving what we would consider easy tasks 4 points. It got really weird, and then Google had to crack down and say we're going to rebalance this, and then finally just split us off in separate domains, which helped a lot, I think. And even this year, you look at some of the orgs, and there's a wild variant on how hard the tasks are.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Like non-beginner tasks to add a button. So, edit 3 lines of an XML document to add this button to our website.
Oh, another thing that would be good to add to the Melange website, that would be to actually remove beginner tasks from the task list once you've done your 2 beginner tasks.
Yes, thank you. I thought of that and did not publish it. I'm going to post that as a ticket now. If you can't actually take the beginner task, it should probably at least be defaulting putting a no filter in the beginner column.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like. We had, and I really want to take some time and look at what the other orgs offered, but we had at least 6 different kinds, I think 7 or 8 different kinds of beginner tasks. One of our problems from the mentor side is when we got an email saying a student has claimed a task, if it was a beginner task, I would then run a search in my email to see if that same student has already completed the same kind of task. Because we did have a couple students try to complete Intro to Linux twice, or try to claim it twice. So we would love, like just discussing with the mentors and other groups as well, a way of not having to duplicate tasks like that, because it's just ridiculous to have 50 different copies of the task up.
Yeah.
But also open up more than 2 of them over time. So if you completed 5 tasks, you want to do another beginner task, you could. So
Yeah, especially for projects with such different modules in them, like ours, for example, we have so much stuff that you can start with to go on another path. So yeah.
Okay, so if no one else has anything more to add, I guess that we can just wrap it up for the last Google Coding Hangout. This Google Coding.
The last one for me.
you got Less than 24 hours left for the last few students to submit. Of course, you three are going to submit your tasks as completed right now, right?
Yeah, sure thing.
Don't forget to do that.
Get you
You'll
do what?
have the task that you're working on right now. Do the hangout.
Yeah, that one.
Yes, that one. Make sure we actually. I think last year we had a student forget to mark it as completed, and then went AWOL immediately after the hangout. So we actually couldn't give him credit for the hangout. So you should do that now. We have another 5 students left to have 24 hours to finish their last task, and then GCI will be wrapped up tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern.
Okay, so that brings us to the close of the GCI Hangout.
It's
See y'all next year.
a pleasure. Yeah.
See ya.